All right, class, in this lesson, we are going to quickly go over how we are going to use some algorithms that we would have with arrays, we now have with array lists, and how those look, and how the syntax is much more simplified, and a few little quirks and features, if you will, as we go through a array list. Let's take a look at the notes. So, array list algorithms. So recall that with arrays, we had a few algorithms where we needed to insert items, shift items around, remove items. How do we do all that? Well, we did that with a lot of complicated code. In array lists, we have a much simpler set. We have our add method, where we simply add an object to the end of a list. We have our overloaded add method, where we take an index and we add an object at that index. I keep saying wanting to spell object with an A. So we're inserting an object at I. And then we also have the remove method, which simply removes an index I here. That takes care of three of our algorithms really easy with those three simple methods. These handle all that same kind of code that we built before, but in the background for us now. Array lists handle all this. The other one that we talked about with arrays was reverse. How do we reverse an array? Well, if you recall, when we reversed an array, we first had to split the array in half. Then we had to swap all the elements on either side. We had to pull one element out, save it in a temporary spot, take the other one, copy it in here, put this one back up there, and then go through rinse and repeat, come all the way back to the middle, make sure that we were dividing by 2 so we don't get index out of bounds or reverse, all kinds of complicated extra stuff. Well, these add and remove methods within our array list give us a really useful tool. And a good way to think about array lists is working with a deck of cards. How would you reverse the order of a set of cards? So the way that you might reverse the set of an order of cards is you take a pile here and you simply move the pile over, placing one more over onto the next card on top. So if this card is on top of this one over here, I place it into a new pile and pass this one on top. Well, array lists basically have that for us in the way that we have those add and remove methods, where we're simply able to shift where something is. Let's take a look at how we do that in the code. So the reversal means that we just go through the deck of cards, we take the last thing on the deck and put it into where we currently, we take our current spot and put it on the end, right? Okay, so we can use enhanced for loop for, let's go ahead and say that we are working with a, actually, we're not going to use enhanced for loop. We need to use a standard for loop. Good thing I checked my notes. We need to use a standard for loop. Why? Because we don't want to deal with the objects inside. We need to deal with their indices. So we're going to use our standard for loop. Almost had a big gaffe right there. For int x equal to 0, and our x is less than our, let's go ahead and use nums. And remember, because of our convention of talking about lists as being plural, we're going to say that this is a plural list. So this is a collection, an array list nums dot size. And we're going to say x plus plus, and we'll go ahead and move through. So this is one of those areas where an enhanced for loop doesn't work, right? Because enhanced for loops are about dealing with the objects inside. We're not worried about dealing with the objects inside. We're dealing more in the array list as a whole and dealing with those indices, those places that we need to work with. So in our one line of code, in order to reverse this, we don't need the several lines of code that we needed before. We are simply going to say nums Think about shifting those cards. What are we going to do? We're going to say nums add to the top position, to 0. And what we're going to add is each card itself. So we're going to take this, our position here, we look at the first card stays where it is, the next card underneath needs to get moved up above. So as we move down the stack, we're going to move it up and up and up and up as we go through the stack. So we simply say remove, nums.remove, our X position item. So it takes that X position, starting at the top, starting at 0, and moving through and placing it on the front of the list. Let me draw this out really quick. So we're going to have our array list here, and we've got all of our items. So as we take our Xth item, right, and this is our index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, right? As we take our 0th item, what's going to happen? We take that 0th item, we remove 0 item, and we place it back into itself. Then X gets moved along, right? X gets moved along to the next position. When X gets into the next position, it's going to take this value, remove it, and plop it into new 0th position. And now all of my indices shift over by 1, right? And once again, we're going to be able to move through the list and reverse it. So because we remove this value here, that gets removed, and we are fine. We actually save ourselves because of that removal. All right, that's how you do a quick reversal of the list. I'll see you guys in the next one.